Hey there, everybody. It's Erik Bethke. It is Friday, November 10th at 5:30 in the afternoon here in Austin, Texas. It's a little bit of a cold and drizzly day for Austin out here. It's kind of welcome. Nice getting to the winter coming along. Well, I want to share with you guys what I have been building for the last few months. We've been in stealth, and I was planning on being in stealth a little bit longer. But a number of events occurred in this past week that motivated me to open the kimono a bit and share what I've been building. It's called GrokTool, and got a nice fancy trademark. I've been working on it for months. Applied for the trademark and all that. I too am a fan of the word to grok, and grok means to understand so thoroughly that the observer becomes part of the observed, by Robert Heinlein and A Stranger in a Strange Land. I was inspired to pick the name Grok because I really deeply got into generative AI. I really dug into OpenAI's API, dug around, read all the papers. I just absolutely been going nuts for this past year. So excited. You know, I've been making games for 30 years, and there are some mind-blowingly new technologies and some stuff that goes way back to the 1940s, 1970s, 1980s. It's all coming together. I remember in the early aughts going to a game developers conference where Marvin Minsky from MIT was doing a presentation, and he did such a great job. And then afterwards, he was so kind and so gracious. We sat around and we talked about AI. We talked about the blackboarding problem. How do you manage multiple minds, and how you synthesize decisions between each other? And I was sharing with him at the time that I was building Starfleet Command, that in Starfleet Command, we had a weapons officer, we had a defensive officer, we had a navigation officer, and we even had a missions officer that kept track of the missions for the game. And it was all organized and synthesized by a captain AI. And the captain AI would listen to all the different sub-officers and then make a decision on what to do. It was incredibly strong, very effective. It had the ability, if it knew that like an Orion pirate was coming in with a shuttle full of explosives and it was going to just hit a star base and blow it up in an act of terrorism, the AI would understand that it has to do whatever it has to do to stop that, including actions would result in the destruction of its own ship. It could go through asteroid fields. It could do anything. In fact, it was so strong that we had to do something kind of like a temperature. We actually had to introduce noise in the decision making of the officers in order to keep it from being too strong and just always winning. And then I've kept in touch with AI over the years. Been building different games and in Go Pets. Loved it. Our pets were actually agents. They had state, they had memory, they had friendships, and they had a list of the most recent foods that they ate, and if they ate redundant foods, they wouldn't like it. And then after they took care of their needs, they'd go up their stack and go figure out what they're doing. So I'm just so excited about AI right now. It's happening. You guys have heard the noise from so many different places, but it's really neat being a game developer, being around for a long time, and being able to see how all these technologies are weaving together. Okay. So what is about GrokTool? So there's two things that really motivate me for this name, Grok and tool. I see AI as just a huge tool. It's a huge lever on productivity. And I've been using ChatGPT, like everybody else, really hard for the last year. And I did some really cool stuff with it. A year ago, I got really into it, and I was designing a spell system for a fantasy game. I was just playing around to see what its capabilities were. And as I was building a spell system, I was trying to figure out, do I want to have 3 schools of magic? Do I want to have 4 schools of magic? Ooh, I kind of like number 6. I like hexagons. How about 6 schools of magic? And it was so much fun to work with it, riffing with it and designing. And I was able to make multiple spell system design systems. And then I got to a point where I couldn't even tell which one did I like better. And then I asked it, like, hey, give me a lens, give me a framework for how to even evaluate it. And so then it did. It gave me a nice lens and a nice framework for evaluating the spell systems. So from then I started making more spells. And a lot of you have done this. You've been in Chat GPT. You've generated some stuff. But I got into it and I started making a really cool spell system, and I had range, flavors of damage, area of effect, things like that. And then I started making more spells and more spells. But it would choke. I'm dealing with a context window. It wouldn't be able to manage it over time. So I learned back in November of last year, a year ago, I learned to say, okay, let's call this spell system by a unique name. So I'd give it a name like Purple Fire Hydrant Spell System, something really distinct, something that it couldn't get caught with anything else. And then it would memorize that format. Then I was talking to it about, hey, how about just go ahead and use however impressive the name sound is, and use how impressive the effect of the spell, and then just go ahead and give it a name, a level. Sorry, give it a level of how powerful it should be. And I thought intuitively that it was going to do something like, oh man, Magic Missile will be lower, and Fireball will be higher, and Meteor Swarm will be the highest. But it came back, and it said, hey, we could just do it by name, but how about we actually fold in the parameters like range, distance, damage, area effect, and then why don't we do a weighted system where we have all these things parameterized, and based on the parameter, we add them all up together and we weight it out, and then we come up with a level. That was a long time ago. That was November of last year, and it blew my mind. And I realized, holy crap, it's now at the level where you can get into really detailed, wonky stuff and get some really strong designs. So the next thing I did is like, great, I'm super excited. Let's go build lots and lots and lots of spells. So I was doing that, but it could only build about 4 or 5 spells at a time. This is like in comma separated values, and it would choke. So I learned to call that thing. I learned to call that, a tool where I said, hey, let's call that a spell leveler. And then I would say, okay, let's spell level this, next chunk of spells. Spell level this, spell level this. So I had a spell system by name. I had some data by content. I had 160 spells that we worked on. I had given that a name. And then I gave it this spell leveler. So I built a function. So very early on my own, I figured out chain of thought, tree of thought, essentially natural language function calling. I got really, really excited. On Million on Mars, we have some great players, very, very passionate, but they're ornery. They're very, very picky. They want to have things very, very detailed, very well explained, and very wonky. All right, so things started coming together. Some things started coming together. GrokTool. And then as I'm using ChatGPT, it started to become kind of tedious to have to re-explain Million on Mars to it, re-explain the context for it, re-explain how we do recipes, how we do missions. So let me show you around about GrokTool. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to show you around some sessions that we have here. It does have a chat interface. It does have at the end of the day, a big chunk of it is using the natural language capabilities of an LLM to get a lot of the answers. We're still very early on. One of my founding principles is to be AI and vendor agnostic. So while I'm currently hooked up to OpenAI's APIs, I have also signed up for Anthropic, and we'll be plugging in Anthropic's API soonly. And it's not just about text. We're the first in the world to integrate scenarios, image generator in Million on Mars as game editor. Plan on bringing scenario in here very shortly. And I'm a huge fan of 11 Labs on their voice generator. So AI vendor agnostic. Primary interface does happen to be a chat history window. But it's a lot more than a chat wrapper. Let me show you around. So I've got sessions that you would think of as chat sessions. I consider them notebooks. a little bit more of a nod to the Jupyter world on the Python side. We've got nice notebooks. We've got a dark mode. We've got a light mode. And you can see we've got a really nice system for auto-detecting the different kinds of code and text. So that's kind of nice and fun. And you can just go through your sessions. Here is a little session I had riffing on Monopoly and why it's a flawed game. That's a video I'm going to release soonly. I've already recorded a bit. And, again, another little piece of code. It just does code really, really, really nicely. But let's get into the rest of the major features. Knowledge. This is key. If you've used custom custom prompting at ChatGPT, then you know what this is. And then this week, again, another reason why I'm coming out of the woodwork a little bit and showing with OpenAI with their custom GPTs, what they're doing with custom GPTs is they're simply filling out a system and role command and saying, hey, answer in this style. You are such and such. And then combining that with data. So I do that here with knowledge. You can upload text files, CSV, JSON, or PDFs. And then over here, you can add them to the context by just clicking on them. And then you add them to your notebook's context. Right here, this is the core use case of GrokTool. I think of it as a cognitive workbench. I'm a big fan of woodworking. I have a nice woodworking shop. I love having all my tools on the wall. I like having jigs. I like having scrap wood. I think of this very much like a wood workshop. I want to be able to drag and drop and pop in files that give me data and it gives me context, or it gives me instructions how to use it. You can also temporarily turn on or off little files and just be a little loosey-goosey about it. And play around with it, and then you can just take them out of the context, and there you go. You can also have tools, and tools are a collection of knowledge wrapped up and saved, so you can come back and get to it whenever you want to. So, for example, a recipe formatter and some recipe data. And so between the grouping of tools and a grouping of the knowledge, turning them on and off, and then having system prompts or not having system prompts, and then having tools. That's really the heart of GrokTool in terms of its major muscles and use cases right now. The other fun stuff is I wanted to support out the door all of those parameters that OpenAI currently has, and then we'll support all the parameters of every other LLM. And so you could start playing with things and get some intuition on it. And then we have, if you want to dial up and down how much of a chat history you want to use on a different prompt, I've got that already here. We do have a voice transcript feature. It works. You can say a prompt and it uses that OpenAI Whisper API, which is very, very strong. And you put up your prompt and get going on that. We're just getting started. Again, I've got some handful of alpha testers, but the use cases are really beginning to blossom. Another fun thing, take this file. This is chapter 5, which features chapter 5 from Carrie Waters, my business partner. She's writing a novel, Buffalo Commons, from Luna Mars, if you don't know that. And I've uploaded a very large file, and I've turned it into chunks, and I have vectorized it. And this is called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. And we've got our own code for that. We do it ourselves. It's really fun. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to do semantic search. So when you're dealing with a large language model, every large language model has a context window. ChatGPT 3.5 stock, 4,000 tokens. GPT-4 stock, 8,000 tokens. Now this week at OpenAI, they announced GPT now has a 128,000 token model variant. Is just rolling out now. Depends on how high you are on the tier and whatnot. And boy, it's got to be tough to be that team over at Anthropic right now, because 100,000 tokens was Cloud's claim to fame, to be so much larger than OpenAI. But it's a subtle thing. It's a subtle thing. You would think that having a very large context window, bigger is always better, right? It's not. It's not always bigger is better. What you want to do is you want to use your context window very, very well. And so we're going to see how that 128K or the 100,000 Claude context windows go. I think they're going to work out really, really well for many, many use cases when you want to just drop something in and get a pretty reasonable summary or pretty reasonable query on it. But the problem is, the larger the amount of context you give it, and then you do a cosine search. The way a cosine search works is you take stuff and you turn them into tokens that are based on the model, and those tokens each get a floating point number, and then you create a hyperdimensional vector. In the case of OpenAI, it's 1,536 dimensions. In the case of Llama 2, I think it's 768 dimensions. And then you just got a vector out there. And then you do a dot product, a cosine search, and you say, oh, these things are close. And then you get things. Now, I'm oversimplifying it. There's a lot of variations to RAG models. You can do all kinds of things. You could use Fibonacci weights based on how recently a term has happened. That's what, and that's something you can kind of pick up with other parameters too. You can fiddle with things. You could do time series. You can do all kinds of things with your RAG stuff and make it more complicated. But it's fun. It's fun to understand it and have it. But my point was, the more context you throw at the LLM, the more you're making the LLM work really hard to figure out what you're talking about. You've had a boss that's given you some direction before, like, hey, could you please make us really, really successful, and just kill it, and you're like, sure. What do you want? How do we do this? And they're not really clear about what they want. Being clear and being crisp about what you want, that's something super, super important, both for humans and for LLMs. And so with a large context window, even if you can grab a lot of junk, and even if you can put it in front of it 128,000 tokens or 100,000 tokens, it makes it really hard to get good, coherent answers. So I personally find it pretty fun to have a 4,000 token or a 8,000 token window, and then massage my RAG techniques and get exactly what I'm looking for. Of course, I'm so excited, like everybody else, to go play with the bigger models. So where are we going with GrokTool? We're doing a lot. First, working with the beta testers, pounding on it, getting all the UI bugs and all the little fiddly bits sorted out, clean all that up. Over this weekend, I should be able to get the JSON splitter and the JSON chunking and vectorizer happening, and then it's going to be really cool, because what we're going to be able to do there, and I've got some prototypes of it, is let's see here. What we're going to be able to do, here we go, is this is a comma separated value of what it looks like for our buildings game design in Million on Mars. And in here, I gave it some context earlier from this buildings file. And the buildings file gives it an overview of what buildings we have in the game. And then I asked it to come up with 3 variations of a recipe for producing stainless steel that could be from the Vulcan Metalworks. And it went through, and it did an excellent job. It gave me 3 different variations on stainless steel, and it did it in the comma separated value version I want. It's all here. But I had to give it a little baby bit of context of the buildings. I had to give it a little baby bit of context of the Million Mars. Very shortly, by next week, we should be able to pull in the entire 45 megabyte GD.json file, have it chunked up, have it vectorized, and then be able to go to town and be able to go build new buildings, new missions, new items, all these wonderful things, all in our comma separated values format for Million Mars, and then simply just do a copy and then paste that into our game design editor. When I got that up and working, that'll be another video for next week, and I'll share that. Here's a little fun thing. This is left over from before when I was asking it to summarize that chapter 5 back when it was 60,000 characters long, which exceeds 3,000. But since then, I have been able to get it all vectorized and cleaned up and start to play with that. And let's see. Oh, see, here's some examples. Chapter 5, RAG test. Post implementing RAG, I'm able to get some characters in there. And yeah. So where are we going with this? Once we've got all the Million Mars game design JSON file all loaded in, and we chunkify it and we vectorize it, I calculated it should cost about $75 for us to do those chunks and to do those vectors. Now it might be a little cheaper after the OpenAI announcement this week, but nevertheless, $75 is not a huge amount of money, but it's also not a tiny piece of money. So we're going to want to think about how to make that more efficient. And one way to make that more efficient would be to share that game design file's chunk and vectors across the team and with our player creators. We do have our entire game design tool is released to our player creators. We've got about 20 people that dig that and like to build content for the game. And so pairing GrokTool with our GE tool, people will be able to use natural language, and they'll be able to query the whole game design set, and they'll be able to make new content, and then they can drop into the game design tool and do previews and take a look at it. Now, what are people saying in the zeitgeist right now? There's three main things people say. One, oh my God, AI is amazing. It's going to change absolutely everything. Two, oh my God, I can't fucking believe you'd be using AI. That's awful. We're all going to be out of a job, and it's doom scenario. AIs are coming. Terminator's going to kill us all. Or three, oh, I tried ChatGPT, and it didn't get any good results. So those are the three Goldilocks and Three Bear stories you hear out there right now. Amazing, total crap, or it's going to kill us. Obviously, I'm in its amazing category. For me, whenever you find somebody who says that they got crappy answers out of ChatGPT, they just haven't put the time into it, and they haven't learned how to do prompt engineering. This video is about talking about GrokTool, so I'm not teaching prompt engineering on this video. There's so many other people who do a great job at doing that. But sharing the knowledge files, sharing our game design files across the team, across our player creators, and then being able to create more and preview more and choose, instead of building a mission chain and barely getting it all working and all wired up and debugging it, I want to build 3 mission chains. I want to build 7 mission chains. And then I, as a human, I want to sit back, look at them and tweak them and go, oh, you know what? I like that about mission 3. I like that about mission 8. I'm going to pick and choose and build it together. I want to be in a flow state. I want to be continuously creating and thinking and just building. I don't want to be bogged down trying to remember what's the syntax again. If I have an input that's not going to be consumed, does that go into inputs or does that go into requirements? I don't want to get stuck in that stuff. I want to be a human. I feel that generative AI liberates me to be as creative and as much of a human as I've ever been before, and it's been working for me. I've been so productive this past year. I've been very, very quiet, but I've been very, very productive, and I'm about to come unchained here. So next big step for GrokTool is getting our big fat game design files in JSON all split up and chunktified, and then sharing that. So think like Google Docs, where you'd be able to explicitly decide this notebook or this knowledge or this set of tools is shared between me and my team, or between me and anybody in GrokTool. This is a little bit like the custom GPTs of OpenAI. I happen to like my little AI a little bit better, and I feel like it's a little bit better for a stronger power user, but we'll see. I'm a big consumer of their stuff, so if they have some good ideas, I'll take them. So sharing is a really, really big deal. And then beyond sharing and sharing knowledge tools and notebook sessions, I'm thinking multiplayer notebook sessions. I think something pretty fun is going to happen when more than one person can interact with the LM at the same time. I'm going to save that after I show it and make that happen. Again, lots more UI features that need to happen. More stuff on the profile. Be able to show off the stuff you're sharing. Probably a tip jar, probably a marketplace, so people can tip each other and reward each other for sharing some stuff back and forth. And then again, more AI tools, images, sound, whatever. This is a cognitive workbench. I want to stay in here. I want to stay in GrokTool, and I want to use it to build all my games going forward and the other stuff I'm working on. I want to start with a high-level game design document, massage that, and get out to having a medium-level document. Here's a great example of Hugo website content. I wanted to show off our partners, Mars Society, Mars Coin, Scenario, and I gave it a little sample of the Hugo static website that we have, and boom, it generated the Hugo content. I was able to one-shot it, change out the little image links, and I was good to go. The website got done. So I want to work in one tool where I can start at the concept level, build out my concepts, build out my low-level game design stuff, share it with my team, update my website, update my player guide, and just have it all humming. All right. Well, that's my introduction to GrokTool. I hope you like what I have here. If there's some features that you would really love to have that you don't see it in another solution, I'd love to hear about it. If you want to get in the queue and help test it, I'd be grateful. Let me know. Anyways, I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and cheers everybody, and I'm glad to finally share you with what I've been working on. All right, bye-bye.